This episode is made possible by New Masters Academy, the world's absolute #1 online art school in the entire universe. Click the link down below for a free 7-day trial. Thank you, New Masters Academy. I am deep in your mind. I am deep in your... Hey everybody, welcome back to the Honey and Absinthe After Hours podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Vincent, a background designer for the Hollywood animation industry.
And I'm Janet, the ex-Disney artist turned independent creator, and this is a podcast about all things art, business, and whatever we feel like.
Now today we're going to talk about Demolition Man and how it predicted 2021, except there's no happy ending.
But before we get into it, make sure to smash, jingle, touch all our bells and buttons. Please and thank you. It really helps us out.
Oh my god, the year is 2021 and you were looking absolutely fabulous. I like what you did to your hair. Your breath smells good. Ooh. It's a sensory experience looking at you. Minty. Minty. With a little bit of orange juice.
Oh my gosh. Ew.
Yes.
So, Vincent, why are we talking about Demolition Man today?
So, Demolition Man is a movie that I saw when I was very, very young. A very quintessential action movie if you're a 90s kid. But Janet, because she lived under a rock, has never seen such a movie. So, we're just, like before, like we talked about a few episodes ago, we were perusing the streaming services, desperate to find something to just turn our brains off with and just waste our time. And then so we stumbled our way to HBO Max, and then lo and behold, there's Demolition Man. And I'm like, I don't think Janet has ever seen this. And you're talking to me about some bullshit. I'm not really listening. But then I turn it on.
Like you do.
I'm sorry. I'm working on it. I turn it on and the movie starts and you're still talking to me and I'm like, And then you notice a movie is starting and you're like, what's this? And then what do you begin? What do you watch? What transpires before you?
Well, I really wanted to talk to you about something, and I actually really didn't want to watch this movie. I was like, why are you not listening to me? Like,
a Stallone movie? Why?
Yeah. And I slowly, I'm talking through it, and then I get slowly distracted by the movie, and I slowly stop talking, and I start watching this movie very, very intensely. And I'm like, oh my god, this movie is amazing. Not because it's like, I guess what you would call a good movie. It's a blockbuster.
It's a very, very fine blockbuster movie.
Made in the 90s, yeah. So it's not like hoity-toity, artistically good, yeah. Like, no film critic is going to be like, top 10 movies of all time. It's not that. But it's a very good blockbuster. But that was not what got me. I was watching 2021 play out before me on the television screen, and I was very confused because I was like, this looks like a movie made in the 90s because clearly Stallone is like a young man, and I'm like, Wesley Snipes is in it. I'm like, what is going on here? And I was kind of like, when was this movie made?
About 96, I think.
I think it's 93.
93. Oh wow.
Yeah. Like, basically around when we were born. And I was like, how did they predict so much? How they just predicted, like, literally everything. I don't think they got, like, maybe 2 things wrong, but barely. Like, it still has time for it to happen.
It remains to be seen.
Yeah, it remains to be seen, like the big one happening. The big one as in, like, the earthquake.
The earthquake. That us Los Angelinos always say, it'll happen.
Yeah, the big one's coming, you guys.
It's coming.
So we were like, wow, this movie, we need to talk about this movie. Yeah. Because it predicts the future. It predicted our future, and it continues to predict the future, in my opinion, of what is to come for Hollywood.
If you, just like Janet, live under a rock and have never seen this movie, Demolition Man. Demolition Man is a movie about Sylvester Stallone.
Yes.
He is a badass cop Doesn't compromise. It's very hard for him to compromise, and he has this arch nemesis, Wesley Snipes, who plays this very Joker-like, nihilistic, criminal character.
Yeah.
And because of certain things that happen in the beginning of the movie, they both are frozen, like cryogenically frozen
in the 90s. Yeah.
And then they wake up. I forgot when exactly.
2032.
2032.
Yeah.
So let's say 10 years in the future from now. 10 years from now.
Yeah.
This really does look like the future from 10 years from now, actually.
Yeah.
So what happens is Wesley Snipes is thawed out, and because he is like a violent criminal, super criminal, the people of this era don't know what to do with him. In fact, all criminal behavior, all murders have been, obsolete for about a decade.
Crime is gone.
Yeah.
Crime doesn't exist because they somehow figured out to create this utopia where everyone is nice to each other and nothing bad happens. So the police, they enforce things like, oh, you swore too much.
You said a boo-boo word.
Yeah.
You said a bed.
Yeah.
You said a bed.
Yeah.
Janet, why do you always say beds?
That's just how I talk.
Beds.
It's fun.
It's fun?
Yeah.
Did you really feel it from the honest bowels of your heart when you say F this and F that?
Yes.
Okay, so obviously the people, the police, in this time, in the 2030s, are absolutely useless.
Yeah, because they don't deal with criminals like Wesley Snipes' character, Simon Phoenix.
Right.
Simon Phoenix.
So what they do, their brilliant idea is to thaw out Sylvester Stallone, who is John Spartan, and basically have him, this old-time cop, apprehend this old-time criminal in this brave new world.
Yes.
Hey!
Did we do a good job summarizing this ridiculous movie?
All right, so now everybody's caught up. I hope if you were that intrigued, please watch the movie.
Yes.
It's on HBO Max.
Yes.
We're not paid to say that, but whatever.
Yeah. I mean, technically, you can rent it on YouTube, Amazon.
Just watch it. Yeah. It's a fun time. I watched it when I was young, and I had a great time. I didn't understand the themes too much. And as an adult, I have a new appreciation for it.
Yeah.
And it just holds up. It's just a fun time.
Yeah, it doesn't take itself too seriously because it's clearly a blockbuster movie with big Hollywood actors and explosions. It's kind of borderline a Michael Bay movie, but in the 90s. It
reminds me of the quality of a Batman movie.
Yeah.
The 90s Batmans.
Yeah.
Where there's explosions, but it looks like a lot of foam.
Yeah. It's kind of cheesy in that way.
Yeah.
So it doesn't take itself too seriously, and you're gonna have fun because it's a little bit of a cartoon.
Yeah.
The storyline is basically like a Batman and Joker. Sylvester Stallone's character is vigilante cop like Batman, and then Wesley Snipes' character is a
Psycho,
Joker. Yeah. Joker, I just want to watch the world burn type character. No clear motives or anything. It's fun.
Just to please himself.
Chaos is fun, yeah.
Right.
But I saw that as the movie was playing, I was like, oh, what is this silly movie? This silly, cartoony, blockbustery movie.
Because it opens with the most ridiculous, not John Woo fight scenes ever. Stallone diving with double gun fire.
From the side and
from the side slow-mo. And then Stallone face and all that. Oh my god.
Or zoom ins on the faces, the drama. So I was not taking it very seriously. But then as Stallone wakes up in 2032, they start to reveal the world and how it's changed in 40 years from the 90s. I was really intrigued because one of the things so now we're gonna get into what this movie predicted. So when Stallone wakes up, he realizes every single time he swears, and he swears a lot because he's from the 90s, and 90s was gritty and dirty and grimy and that kind of thing. So he swears a lot, and every single time he swears, there's like a ticketing machine that gives you a ticket and deducts credits from your life. I don't know. I guess you earn credits instead of money or whatever by how well you behave.
The government gives you money for being a good citizen.
Yes.
Aha.
Yes, and deducts money for like swearing.
Being a bad citizen.
Yeah. So
for saying no words.
Yeah. So every time Stallone swears, he gets deducted. And he's like, "What's that beeping?" And he's like, "Oh, you're not. It's illegal to say swear words now." And then he was like, "What the fuck? That's a bunch of bullshit." And then he just like rattles off all the like swear words, and I was like, wow, it's just like 2021. We're not allowed to say certain things.
Sandra Bullock plays this character who's this, hopeful little officer.
Yes.
Who is very nostalgic for the 90s.
Yeah.
So again, just like people just looking back to the past and not looking right what's in front of them, and like she's just so totally smitten that this archaic
archaic
man,
human.
This primitive human is like alive and well, like
walking
and like
around.
Thinks, talks, and behaves like a 90s person.
Yeah.
She's just smitten by him.
And one of the things, like again, they call him like a primitive, unsophisticated human from the 90s. Because he does all these unbecoming things.
Sorry, she's just drooling on the mixer.
Oh god.
Oh, mom, cat.
Our cat
Not
is
my beautiful
old.
Mixer. Her saliva smells like death itself.
She's that old.
Oh god, mom, cat. Okay, continue. Sorry.
Okay. Where was I?
You were talking about the world.
Oh. So they call Sylvester Stallone and anyone from the 90s, including like the villain that gets thawed out, like primitive, unsophisticated humans. And I was like, man, that's so accurate too, that like anyone who doesn't like obey and behave the way you do, you call them things that dehumanize them. Like you call them scum, you call them primitive, unsophisticated, or rats, or whatever. Because there's these other group of characters in the movie that they're portrayed as like criminals in this world, because they are, I guess, because everything's illegal. And they do things like steal food.
They live underground.
And yeah.
All the, the bourgeois live above the surface, and all the, the common folk
yeah,
live underground,
and they do horrendous things like paint graffiti on the walls. Oh, it's so bad.
But in this future they have like these robot arms that can completely
scrub it immediately as it happens.
Nonsense.
So they're portrayed as like unsophisticated, not evil, just like criminals. Like, oh, they're the dirt, they're the scum. They don't even live up on the top like us. They live underground in the sewage, and they're dirty. And like by the end of the movie, they discover that like, oh, they just want to be able to live and do and say whatever they want. Right.
In the beginning of the movie, there's this what would you call him? Sort of like a revolutionary figurehead.
Yeah, of the dirty underground people.
Yeah, the dirty underground people played by Dennis Leary.
Yeah.
If you remember him from the Sabretooth in Ice Age or Rescue Me, former comedian. And you think he's like a bad guy, but then they all of our characters go down to the underworld and meet with him, and then we soon realize he's just like a very like cartoonish, liberty-minded character.
Yes.
That you really related with.
I was like, man, this whole movie just resonates with me because it's such a like exactly the tone that I feel in my head about society.
This is how you see. This is how, if you want to see what Janet's worldview is, it's how you look at the Demolition Man world, right?
Yes, that's exact. Like it's so real by being comedically not real. that is exactly how I see society. And I was like, oh my god, this is exactly the comedic take on this is so accurate.
For example, talk about the music, the popular music of this era.
So in this world, it's not this kind. It portrays itself as a utopia, but at the end you understand it's a dystopia. And it takes a lot of references from like Brave New World and that kind of thing, but it's like instead of the government controlling things, it's more like the corporations. So it's so painfully accurate.
It's so accurate.
Because the corporations control everything, all our popular music in 2032 are corporate jingles.
Like the Oscar Mayer Wiener song.
Yeah, or the Green Giant, Eat Your Peas, whatever. They're good for you song.
Zoomers don't know what the we're talking about.
Yeah, they're like, what are commercials? What's Green Giant? And so the corporations control everything, and they provide us in 2032 with a very comfortable, nice life, as long as you behave accordingly. There are things like self-driving cars. They got that completely accurate. The craziest thing that they got really accurate was that no one does handshakes anymore. They do this. They wave at each other. If you can see the video that we're doing the handshake.
Silly.
We wave at each other without touching.
Yes.
And the reason is because germs.
Yes.
And I was like, oh my god. They predicted the pandemic.
Yeah. They predicted some cataclysmic pandemic that's going to make people afraid of social contact.
Yes.
And social norms, anything like that.
Yeah.
So making love and making babies, one of my favorite activities, is completely banned.
Yes.
Completely banned.
It's banned. So they have VR.
They have VR, man. They have VR.
They have VR because touching each other is not okay anymore. The man and the woman has to put VR helmets on so that they can experience the cognitive tingles of what it is to make love without touching each other. And I was like, that is so accurate in so many ways, in more ways than one. The fact that we have VR, that we're not allowed to touch each other anymore, that we want to cognitive stimulation, they are telling us, is greater than physical interaction.
The industry is there for someone who's bold enough to enter it.
Yes. Yes. We don't communicate in person anymore for the most part. We avoid it. So we Zoom. Mm-hmm. We communicate through a screen in our meetings. And I was like, how did they know? How did they know that we as humans are going to go there one day?
They also predicted Arnold Schwarzenegger having a political career. You know, they say in the movie that he's president.
Yeah.
But I don't think he can. But he was governor of California for a while.
And I was like, wow, how'd they know? They must have knew that he had political aspirations or something. But I was like, close. We got Trump.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Very close.
The Apprentice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then then there is the policing of speech.
Yes. It's just you're not allowed to say anything offensive, and it's so, because it's not like a rated R movie or whatever. They're not.
I think it is a rated R.
Is it?
Yeah, because Sylvester Stallone says
a lot,
like 50 times.
Well, they make it a joke that even the most benign swear words or offensive language you get ticketed for. Like if you're just rude. Like you're like, oh, you cut me off in line. Oh, that's an offense. That's a ticket. So that is crazy that like they knew that like we would police speech like that. But also like there's this Ozymandias type character, and if you haven't watched Watchmen or read Watchmen, Ozymandias is this he's like the character in a story where they think they know best, and for the greater good, I will save humanity by destroying it. that kind of character, that's typical like anime and stuff, or like Ultron in Marvel movies. Like, oh, you guys don't really, not Ultron, Thanos. Thanos. He was like, I will recreate a utopia by snapping away half of you because population density or something. I don't know. You guys are killing yourselves. I don't know. Similar type of character in this world is this guy who's basically like the head of some corporation that helped get rid of all crime, which is why everyone idolizes him and thinks he's like their savior. And he has this like propaganda campaign to like get rid of the dirty, filthy underground people, but he really hates their leader figure, the
Janet.
Yeah. The guy who keeps like spray painting graffiti, like, oh, this guy, I forget his name, the villain of the story.
He had a ridiculous name. Dennis Leary.
No, the other one. The
Ozymandias.
Yeah. He keeps like spray painting like, oh, that guy's name is like stupid or something, and then he's like, he is the devil. he is evil. We need to get rid of him. He is the reason why our society is not as like utopian as it could be or whatever. Meanwhile, he's the one that like is surprisingly, or maybe not so surprisingly, exempt from most things. Like he was the one who thawed the Joker type Wesley Snipes character because he wanted him to like go and off the dirty scum leader.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking like, wow, this movie predicted all of this. Like, we have these characters in our everyday lives today. Like, who can you think of that is exempt from all the rules that you normal commoner folk need to abide by, but can go eat at the French Laundry? His name rhymes with gruesome.
I wonder who.
And yet people idolize him for some reason. For some reason, our society decided all of a sudden by 2021 that it's perfectly okay to idolize politicians of all people. And I'm just like,
of all people.
Like, I understand musicians.
The only thing just as useless as an actor. A politician, really.
It's just like, wow, okay. Like, I bet in the 90s when this movie was made, they're like, oh, this is just something we imagine might be coming true. Like, I don't think they knew how right they were going to be. And I just think it's really fascinating that, like, our world has truly become that world like 10 years early.
I remember rewatching this movie thinking, like, I remember a lot of these parts, and I remember when things were happening, you know, the past 4 years. I thought, I would think of like, man, it's kind of like that movie Demolition Man. I really should watch that movie again, because I remember it being ridiculous. So then when I watched it with you, I was like, man, this is like too close to real life now.
Yeah.
It's not like when you see other fantasy inventions of the future, like, let's say, famously Back to the Future 2, where it's very similar. Like, commercialism has gone rampant and all that stuff. But, like, I don't know, man. This is... even Idiocracy, I don't think you've seen it, like, has a lot to say about us as people.
Yeah.
But I don't think I've seen a vision of the future in blockbuster movies that has quite captured just like where we're at as a culture.
Yeah, as a society.
Other than Demolition Man. Yeah. This is where we're at.
Yeah. So the basic plot of the movie is that the reason why they de-thaw Stallone help is because you see the police of 2032, their inability to deal with Simon Phoenix, the
main villain,
the anarchist like Joker like villain, because he is like violent from the 90s. He'll like kill people, he'll like be violent, he'll punch people, and they don't deal with that. They're like, stop, because I told you to. And then he's like, fuck you. And then he's like, going to ask you nicely again. Stop. And then, because it is bad. And then he's like, go away, you're annoying me. And he's like, stop. This is my final warning. I'm gonna say it even the strongest I can say it. He's like, stop. Or else. And then Wesley Snipes' character is like, or else, and then he like roundhouse kicks him like a ridiculous kung fu movie.
Yeah. He was flying in the air.
So that is so accurate to the way people want policing to be. and it's also so accurate to it's also like painfully accurate to the way like how if that became our world, like, yeah, they wouldn't be able to handle a character like Simon Phoenix, so they get like Stallone to be able to, like, because he is willing to be violent, he knows how to be violent.
Yeah, he's willing to play in the mud.
Yeah.
Right.
So you just kind of see Stallone kind of figure out like how to exist as a 90s cop in a 2032 world where like you can't swear, you can't be violent, he's considered primitive.
I love the scene where Sandra Bullock tells him, I want to make love to you, and he's just like, yeah, I sure. It's like, yeah, like, it's great. Oh. And then like little does he know, it's just the most ridiculous experience, far removed from what he remembers or what he's used to. But that scene is just so crazy. It just illustrates how far we've come that we can't even like relate to each other.
We can't touch each other.
Yeah,
it's considered. Oh, the reason why I thought was amazing. The reason why is because it's illegal to make babies. Literally, it's illegal because of population control. And then in order to make children, it's test tube babies that like it has to be allowed, sanctioned by the government, and then you give your part, and the other person gives their part, and then they put it in a lab and they make the baby. And then I was like,
look at the baby.
How did you get this so accurate in the 90s? I don't understand, because that is exactly what I think a lot of people want to do to us.
It's creepy, man.
I know. But so you eventually learn in this story that the person who rules this universe is the actual bad guy who unleashed the Simon Phoenix, because of this group of, he wanted to get rid of the underground people, and he sees this Dennis Leary character, the leader of the underground people, as a threat because he's a leader. Like, it's not like he's trying to get rid of all the underground people. He wants to get rid of the
because
leader.
He knows that like without a leader they're just like dum-dums.
But also no one can be a threat to his power.
Oh, I see.
And which to me was like he wants all his subjects to be docile. Like, they are docile. And he really hates that there's this group of ragtag people graffitiing stupid on like the side of their buildings and stuff.
Man, this is like eerily similar to something I've known.
Yeah.
Or experienced. I'm sure you've known or experienced.
And you find out, like, Stallone's character eventually finds out that wait a second, these people that are so hated, these primitive, dirty people, they are just a bunch of people who don't want to live by like these rules of like, they want to live more freely. They're like, I want to be able to swear. I want to be able to eat meat, because apparently eating meat is illegal too because it's bad for your body. Almost not quite.
Yeah. But in 10 years, 15 years, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, California, man.
Yeah. I mean, they're already trying to get us to eat crickets. Stallone, he meets like the underground people, and like they're eating burgers, and they are just living a debaucherous life. Like they're gambling, and they're like touching each other, and they're dirty. Like they're like the fact, I don't know why. There's something about like cleanliness is like important too. So like he's like, hey, they're not criminals. They're not hurting anybody. They went up to the every time he would see them, they're like graffitiing and or stealing food. Oh, by the way, Taco Bell is all restaurants in this universe because of the franchise wars. Because once upon a time there was like a franchise war. Taco Bell won, so now all restaurants are Taco Bell, even the nice ones.
It reminds me of the streaming war.
Yeah.
Where, HBO Max, Netflix, Disney Plus are at each other's necks.
Yeah. But
then who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, but then like Disney is like buying up everybody. Yeah. Like Fox and Hulu, all owned by Disney now. And I'm just like, we're getting closer and closer to that reality.
10 more years.
Where everything is owned by Taco Bell. Except probably everything's just going to be owned by Disney.
Make it stop.
Yeah, make this timeline stop.
Make this timeline stop.
So Stallone realizes like, oh, these people, they're just like trying to live. And then Dennis Leary's character has this amazing speech when you finally like meet him. Yeah. Like for real. And like
and you understand why he's so hated.
Yeah.
By the Ozymandias type character. Why?
Because he just wants to live.
Yeah.
And like not fall. He says something like, I want high cholesterol. I want to eat burgers and fries and get fat. And I was like, me too. And then he was like, you know why they hate me? They hate me because I read. It's because I speak my thoughts, and because I want to run around naked. I want to be able to run around naked with my body covered in Jell-O if I want to. And then I was like, me too, man. And then Stallone's character is like, oh, I understand why he hates you. It's because you're the leader of all these people who just wants to live. And then he's like, I'm no leader. These people just follow me because they want to. And I was like, me too, man. I was like, oh my god, I am a cartoon character of this human being. And I was just kind of like, wow. Oh, it's so accurate to the way I think the real life version of these characters actually are kind of like this. There was this joke that I saw on Twitter about like how people like me need to learn how to like groom ourselves and like speak properly so we can, talk to people and exist in polite society. And then I was like, I know how to talk to people. And then I quickly was like, no, actually I don't. I do not know how to exist in polite society. And yeah, that from there, like Stallone becomes kind of like on the side of these underground people and wants to defeat the corporate overlord, basically.
The corporate fascist, they call it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's the corporate overlord. He owns, I assume, the private company that got rid of all crime and gets rid of graffiti on command. Meanwhile, he has to like defeat the Phoenix character who is working for the corporate overlord
against his will, because somehow the overlord programmed Wesley Snipes to work under him against his will.
Yeah. And what's interesting to me is like Wesley Snipes' character, Phoenix, exists in our 2021 reality as well, because he is someone who's very similar actually to the underground people. Like they hang out there too, but he wants to be able to do whatever he wants, but he also wants like trample over other people to get it. That's the difference, I guess, between him and the underground people who just want to live and don't want to bother anyone. And he when he had the power to, used his power to be like F you, I do what I want, you can't control me, and he like bites the hand that feeds and gets rid of the corporate overlord. And I was like, oh, how accurate. I am reading Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza. This book is a fantastic book to teach you how to achieve all the things that you set out for. And if you don't already have an Audible subscription, head over to audibletrial.com/the Honey and Absinthe podcast, where you'll get a free trial of Audible. That's 2 free audiobooks. audibletrial.com/the Honey and Absinthe podcast. And what's really interesting, the reason why that like this movie gets our entire society accurately, except for the ending, which is a very like Hollywood, like all the loose ends are tied up.
Wrap things up, everybody.
Yeah, where Stallone defeats his arch nemesis and I think freezes him, and he basically, the evil corporate overlord is gone, so everyone's like, oh no, what do? We have to govern ourselves. Oh no. And then he's like, you guys will be fine. Stallone's like, you'll be fine, you'll survive. And he basically tells like the dirty underground people, you guys need to clean up a little bit, and you guys at the top need to like loosen up a little bit,
right? And
so we will meet somewhere in the middle and we will kumbaya. And then that's how the movie ends, right? Like, compromise, meet in the middle, happy, we live happily ever after. And I was like, oh, that's the one place where I do not think you're going to get it right. Because that does not exist right now, which is why I am such a disliked human being.
Explain why a movie like this is really shocking to you that it existed in the first place, and how impossible it is to make a movie like this, and impossible to have an ending where the sentiment is like, maybe we should meet in the middle. Because that's a very unpopular thing to say. A lot of very, very, passionate people do not like that sentiment.
Yeah. The reason why they don't like that sentiment is I think people have made it their identities to be for something, for either side. And because of the dehumanization of the other, like that's how they see each other. So what's worse than the other is the person in the middle who is like, come on guys, let's all kumbaya and like meet somewhere in the middle. The fact that this movie doesn't villainize that person is the most unrealistic thing.
Whereas if that movie existed today, that would be the villain number one.
Yeah. Stallone would be the villain.
Yeah.
You'd be like, get along. We don't want to. The reason why I think this movie can't possibly... I was so shocked by it is because it can't possibly exist today. Every single modern movie that we've seen recently that's not the message. In fact, every single modern movie from Hollywood specifically they've become a character in their own movie.
Explain.
So because this world is run by corporations, all the messaging is nice. It's all for the side of this corporate overlord. It makes him look very, very, very good. It tries to make sure that you do not feel bad, so that you can just be happy and exist, I guess.
Everything's fine.
And I was like, that's exactly what Hollywood does now. It doesn't say anything, it doesn't do anything because it rocks too many boats. And the fact that like people have been trying to convince us that Hollywood has always been this way. That like, oh, like half the criticism for me when I made my Why I Quit video is, you're so dumb. You're so naive. I knew this. I'm so much more superior in knowledge and thought than you because I knew this coming into Hollywood. What'd you think it was? Ha ha, you're dumb. And and I'm like, so you're trying to tell me that Hollywood has always been like this. Maybe. I didn't live all the way back in the 60s and the 70s and the 50s and during like the McCarthy era where like they like shamed people. I didn't live through all that, so maybe politics have always been political, and we also
politics have always been in Hollywood. You mean?
Yeah, maybe politics has always been in Hollywood. That like, oh, it was naive for me to think that like I could be an artist in this business.
Naive of you to think that you as an artist could possibly make art.
Yeah, to say something. Like I understand that we also need to make money here. I know this is a business, but I thought like I'd have at least some semblance of creative freedom. But like for example, like we recently watched Mank, and it's very much like trying to explain that politics has always been a part of Hollywood.
That's why we love that movie so much.
Yeah.
It came out in a time where I'm just like, oh wow, this couldn't have come out better.
Yeah.
Totally illustrates the relationship between politicians and Hollywood.
Yeah. Which I think there's some amount of truth there, obviously.
It's a movie, but
allegedly, I guess. So I have recently been more convinced that like, oh yeah, like I guess maybe I was naive. Maybe to some extent there's always been movies about how like subtly trying to like unbrainwash the public with their movie, saying that Hollywood isn't what it seems.
The corporations, I know it's a novel thought, but they're not your friends. The politicians, maybe not your friends either.
Yeah, maybe they're just selfish. And I was slowly being convinced of that. So seeing that this movie was made in the 90s, like 30 years ago, that wasn't that long ago that it was possible to make a movie like this.
Do you think this movie was made by a saner Hollywood? I mean, I don't think Hollywood was ever sane.
Yeah.
But it was a saner Hollywood.
A more tolerant Hollywood.
Right.
And I think the people who greenlit this movie too, I was constantly like mind blown that this movie had the budget that it had. There's like big Michael Bay explosions, cars being crashed, buildings being destroyed, and I was like, this movie is a big budget blockbuster movie. Usually when I see movies like this, in terms of like the messaging, they tend to be smaller budget indie movies, even back in the day. So I always assume like, oh, I guess when you have a message like this, it's always been not okay. Like there's always been some kind of agenda that Hollywood has, or a director has, or whatever. But the fact that like they could have this message, I was like, Hollywood at that time then did not care about the message. It made me think Hollywood in the 90s cared about making money. They did not care if what you had to say, as long as they made them money, which in my opinion I would kind of want. Like I that's kind of my philosophy of like, let's say I was a big Hollywood executive, I'd be like, look, I don't care, you make your art because clearly people want to see what you have to say. You do what you gotta do to make me money. If we have that deal, great. But what it seems like to me is Hollywood seems like they care more about the messaging more than the money these days. Like, and to me that's bizarre. I'm like, why did you do that to yourselves? Why? But like it's just confusing to me, like all the stuff with China and like them censoring their own movies for China, but then also wanting to promote very like progressive American ideals, and I'm just like, or Western ideals. I'm just like, well, what game are we playing here? That's why I think it's crazy that this movie could exist, and it can't possibly exist today. Hollywood will not be capable of making a movie like this, in my opinion, because things are too hot, I think, for them to risk their ability to make money.
If this movie came out today, what would Vox and all of the CNN and all of these outlets say about this movie? What would the outcry be?
They would say it's promoting alt-right ideals.
Uh-huh.
Just like they are talking about with Paw Patrol. That's so crazy. If you guys haven't heard, people are canceling the Paw Patrol movie because the doggies are cops.
Yes.
That's about the reason why. And I was like, oh my God. I feel bad for some of our peers who probably worked on that movie / show. Like, you guys do it. It's a preschool show. It's like canceling Dora the Explorer or something because of, I don't know, something dumb.
In the Demolition Man movie, the crew of this movie would have received many tickets.
Yes. Many tickets. It would be censored from existence.
See, we're not that far off, right?
Yeah. Like, books will be banned. Like, they apparently, like, guns don't exist in Demolition Man.
They literally have to go to the museums.
Yeah,
just to get guns.
To see the guns. They're like, oh, what primitive, violent people we used to be. And I was like, oh my God, this is the reality that is gonna exist in 2032. It made me think about who are the people who are making the art, though, making the messaging, if Hollywood doesn't do it, because Hollywood's just making corporate jingles at this point, like in Demolition Man. And I was like, who's actually saying something like this movie is saying, that they allowed back in the day this movie to say? And I realized,
you mean like who actually has a vision and has something to say,
like Demolition Man?
I see.
Because it used to be the Hollywood directors, it used to be the people who wrote scripts for Hollywood. Like, at the very least, yes, it's like a dumb action movie, but at the very least they had something to say, and Hollywood actually let them. If Hollywood isn't doing it, someone must be, and I realize it's the individual. The individual and the people on the internet are the people who are saying something the way Demolition Man said something. And I was like, well, would you look at that? That we are the dirty scum of the earth people scrawling graffiti up on the upper bourgeois.
Stupid.
Yeah, like, oh, it's stupid. And and they are desperately trying to scrub it away as fast as possible.
Shut up, I'm not stupid.
And we just exist, not expecting to ever make much of a difference, but we do it because it's right, or we do it because we want to, honestly, at the end of the day. And I was like, I really believe that one of us, meaning people on the internet, the individual who says what you want to say, regardless of whatever, I think one of us is going to make the next Demolition Man. Like,
or something like it.
Yeah, literally. Like, I think someone is going to make a piece of content. I don't know if it's going to be a film. I don't know if it's going to be just a random video on the internet. I don't know if it's even going to be a video. But someone is going to make something that tells the future and says something meaningful about where we will be in 2052. I believe it. I really don't think we will. Like, you and me. I think somewhere out there, one of you are probably going to do it.
Yeah, we hope so. I'm really happy I showed this movie to you. It seemed like it spoke to you on a very, very deep human level.
I even though I know this movie is like a blockbuster, dumb, fun kind of movie.
Your top 10?
I think it actually is one of my top 10. Like, wow. Like high and low.
He's just like up there with Kurosawa.
Like he is up there, and then like Demolition Man. Because, you know, if I don't put some of my guilty pleasure in my top 10 movies,
then you're not really living, are you?
Yeah. So, our recommendation for this week is
to watch Demolition Man. Please watch the movie and let us know what you think. It's a good time.
It's a really good time. It's on HBO Max for free, but you can also rent it on like whatever streaming platform, whatever. And
go to the library.
Please tell me what you think, because I really like the
Let's have a conversation about it, because we really, really like this movie a lot.
I like this movie a lot. If you like this episode, make sure to smash the like button. Head over to honeyandabsent.com to help support this channel, keep the cameras rolling by buying some merch. Check out these other episodes over here to binge all our other episodes, and we will see you next time.
Bye-bye.